In this video, I'm going to be discussing the capabilities of the Nikon L810 digital camera. Pretty decent little camera. It's not top of the line by any stretch, but it shoots 720p video, 30 frames per second. Got quite a zoom capability, I'll show you that. And it's not something you're going to shoot a film on, similar to the 110 that I reviewed earlier. That's okay. I mean, for creating YouTube videos, this actually does the trick just fine. I got it cheap. Yeah, I picked it up at a used camera store online for, I don't know, 70, 75 bucks, something along those lines. A few things that it lacks, it would be like manual controls. You can control the ISO, but you can't control the shutter speed or aperture. Shooting with it right now on a selfie stick. So stick around and let's talk about it together. The Nikon Coolpix L810 has a 16.1 megapixel sensor, 26 times optical zoom. The zoom capability is equivalent to a 22.5 millimeter lens all the way up to a 585 millimeter. It shoots video at 720p, 30 frames per second, and also 640 by 480. Wind noise reduction reduces the sound heard when wind passes over the microphone. However, it does tend to distort sounds, voices that you may actually want to record. Autofocus mode gives you two options. Single autofocus, where the focus is locked as soon as you start recording, and full-time autofocus, where the camera focuses continually. Now, I have tried the continuous autofocus myself. As you can see in this clip here of the harness race, focus kind of went in and out. I don't know if it's a defect in my camera or if that's just the way the full-time autofocus works. I'm actually not happy with it, but if I have to use it, then I will. Mentioned earlier that I wanted to talk about the zoom capability on this camera. It's a 26 times optical zoom, plus an additional 4 times digital zoom on top of it. You can see the autofocus problem again, where it's kind of hunting for focus and then goes in and out sometimes here and there. One thing I noticed that worked quite well for me on this is use the single autofocus, set optical zoom all the way out or as far out as you need to get it, and then lock your focus and use the digital zoom at that point to extend it even further. When it comes to exposure controls for the L810, you can set your ISO sensitivity between 80 and 1600, or you can set it to auto, which is what I typically run, because you can't set the shutter speed or the aperture manually. So there's really not much point in running in anything else besides auto, at least in my opinion. One manual control you do have with exposure, though, is exposure compensation. It'll go from +2 to -2 in steps as shown here. Some test footage here on exposure compensation. You notice in normal exposure compensation 0 that the sky is kind of blown out. At +1 it blows out really bad. Exposure compensation -1, on the other hand, shows a lot of detail in the sky, but the parking lot is kind of dark. Using macro mode, there are two ways to get into it. One is to use the little button on the back that kind of looks like a flower, and you can see the effect right here. It doesn't automatically extend the zoom on the camera when you do that. The second way to get into it is to use the scene selection and select close-up. What that does is that automatically will zoom the lens on the camera. That allows you to get a lot closer to the subject and magnify it quite well. The L810 does allow you to select scenes in scene mode, which are supposed to optimize for various scenes that you can shoot in. You've got choices of portrait, landscape, sports, night portrait, party indoor, beach, snow, sunset, dusk dawn, night landscape, close-up, food, museum, fireworks show, black and white copy, backlighting, panorama assist, pet portrait, and 3D photography. Most of these are more useful when shooting still photography rather than video. What I noticed is the scene modes that most affect how the picture looks are dusk dawn, black and white copy, and food. And you can go through the different colors that are associated with food to tint the image. Most scene modes pretty much resemble portrait and don't really do anything, at least as far as video is concerned. When it comes to tinting your video, you could possibly do some of this with LUTs or in video editing software. White balance allows you to shoot in various kinds of light. The options that are available to you are auto, preset manual, where you can take a picture of an object that's white or gray and it will set your white balance accordingly. Daylight, incandescent, fluorescent, cloudy, and flash, which is used for still photography. I've included some examples of various white balance settings taken under a bright cloudy sky for you to look at. The last setting I want to talk about is color options. The options you have are standard, which is what I typically shoot in, vivid, which is supposed to make it brighter and more punchy, black and white, obviously, sepia, and cyanotype, which is kind of a purplish hue. And here are some examples, again, taken from a cloudy day from my balcony to show what these can do. Well, that finishes my review of the Nikon Coolpix L810. The good, what I like about it, the long zoom capability. You can actually get some really good detail from quite a ways away using it. The bad, or at least the not so good in my opinion, is the autofocus, or at least full-time autofocus. There are ways to work around it, but I'm not sure that I have any camera that I really am completely happy with the autofocus on. So, should you buy it? Well, my recommendation, if all you're shooting with currently is a cell phone and you can actually pick up the 810 cheap, there's no good reason why you shouldn't. Maybe you already have one, that you bought before. It is usable for YouTube videos. Has actually quite a good wide angle as well as long zoom. I'll be reviewing some other cameras over the next few weeks. So, thanks for watching this one, and I will see you in the next video.